I'm Suzanne Siracuse. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of my podcast, focused on the future, keys to building a profitable, sustainable, and impactful business. And I am excited to again be partnering with wealthmanagement.com on this. This series will focus on what firms need to embrace to ensure their growth and success for the future. And you'll hear from industry leaders and advisors on what is working for them. Just like in Season 1, I have a great lineup of guests in store, and today I'm talking with Carina Diamond. Carina is the founder and CEO of Stella Secunda, which is Latin for next star. Her firm provides consultative organic growth strategies to financial services firms. Carina is also the director of Diversitas, a national initiative focused on expanding diversity in wealth management. Throughout her 30-year career, Carina has built and scaled wealth management teams, including at her own RIA. I know we're going to be getting to that today. So welcome, Carina. Thank you so much for being my guest today, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Hi, Suzanne. Good to see you.
You too, you too. So I like to start off the podcast with learning a little bit about your personal journey into the wealth management industry. So how did you get to where you are now? How did you get your start? How did you hear about the profession, et cetera, et cetera?
So I was a weird kid who read Dr. Spock books and thought I wanted to be a child psychologist. And as I've progressed through my career in various channels, including banking, the trust business, CPA firms, broker-dealers, and RIAs, and being a financial advisor, I realized I have become a child psychologist because often working with clients, you feel that way. And today there's much more of a focus on psychology, actually. So I feel like I've come full circle in a way. But I did recently leave a national RIA where I was a chief experience officer and then chief growth officer, and really realized substantial success in next-gen talent development and retention and organic growth. And then, as you mentioned, I did execute my own succession plan. I think a lot of it and how I got here has been sort of staying in that beginner's mindset. I think they say that, in the beginner's mindset, there's infinite possibilities, but in the expert's mindset, there's only a few possibilities. So I try to stay in that beginner's mindset. And I really believe that reinvention is not just necessary, but it's also infinite.
Yeah, I love that. I know a little bit about reinvention. So I get it, and never been happier. So in any case, I love that. I think it's really interesting how you tied back, like that you wanted to be a child psychiatrist. And now, a lot of times the job of a financial planner or an investment advisor, there's a little bit of a therapy side to what they do in terms of coaching their clients and sometimes talking them off the ledge. So that at least you've kept on track with what you originally thought you were going to do, at least in some degree, right? So this podcast is really all about the future and what firms and individuals need to do to be successful now and in the future. So what are you seeing as some of the critical areas for firms and advisors to consider in order to serve not only their current clients, but the future clients and how that demographic is going to be changing?
So one of the biggest things I think is that we all have to kind of take a step back and realize that the pace of change is never going to be slower than it is today. So in other words, it's just going to keep getting faster and faster and faster. And so we'll talk about some things today that could be different in a year. I think for many years, firms, rightly so, tried to get all of their teams to understand that everybody is selling something. No matter what you're doing, maybe you're in the front line, maybe you're in the retentive side. And today, what I would say is that firms need to have a mindset of understanding that talent development and retention is everyone's job. So it's not just HR, or it's not just the CEO or the person who's in charge of, a certain area. It really is going to take everybody in the profession to really really retain and develop that talent, because I think that that is one of the biggest challenges. And the most successful firms out there are going to figure out how to sort of crack the code on that. How do you get to those students? How do you convince career changers? And it's that really is the biggest challenge when you look at all the demographics.
So in terms of, what the advisors and what you've seen, I know you're consulting with a lot of firms now, but what what do advisors really need to be mindful of as they are serving a changing investor demographic? What are some of the things that you think would be important for them to know?
I think that the virtual workplace has really harmed the mobility of a lot of advisors and their trainees or people that they're trying to bring into the business. And even though we live in a wonderful world of technology where we're doing things faster, information's out there, everyone brags about their tech stack, and that's very important for scale. But I think one of the biggest things that advisors can be doing is more one-on-one coaching, bringing younger people with them to meetings. There's so much nuance and there are so many things that happen in a face-to-face environment that I think we're really losing them as a society, but especially in financial management and financial planning, where if we as advisors are not face-to-face coaching someone and letting them see the emotion on the face of the client, see them wringing their hands or see the way someone looked at somebody, you're not going to get that in a virtual setting. You're just going to miss a lot of that. So I think that that is something that is not always a popular thing to say about returning to the office, but I think that that is one very, very big trend that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. I think that is critical to engaging with future and current clients. And so you're also really well known for your thoughtful approach to developing out a pipeline of next gen talent that's coming into our profession. So not just the clients that we're going to serve, but also the teammates we're going to have, the employees we're going to have, the future leaders in our industry, and especially as it relates to diverse talent. So, and you've been really involved in Diversitas, as I mentioned in your bio. So can you talk a little bit about what Diversitas actually is, a little plug for them, how you became involved, and what key learnings you have about attracting and retaining next gen talent into our industry?
So Diversitas started 8 years ago at the University of Akron, and originally it was designed to attract more women and underrepresented people into the financial planning department at the university. And lots of connections with high schools, with what we call career influencers, so teachers, guidance counselors, superintendents. And we had a lot of traction there in the community and driving more students into that program. When the pandemic hit, we took the big plunge and we went virtual. And today we have we have 8 years behind us. We have 24 partner universities all around the country. And the focus has shifted a little bit. So it's still trying to attract underrepresented people into wealth management and financial planning. But the tweak we made this year is to also really focus strongly on the diversity of opportunities, because we're finding that the average person, including the high school teachers and guidance counselors, they seem to think that it's all about math and sales. And the last number I saw on sales jobs is that it's only about 8% of jobs in wealth management, which is kind of crazy because people think that we're all selling something. So that's really where it is today. And it's been an astonishing journey, a very, very exciting journey in the sense that we've attracted, I think, most of the major financial institutions in all parts of the business. We literally have thousands of students that attend the programs and then watch them later because everything is on our website, diversitasfp for financialplanning.org. And then in the colleges and the universities, they're using our content to also teach our students. So we wouldn't be doing, we know we have impact here if all these top universities and some great corporate sponsors are all jumping on board. We're literally getting new people almost every day, new companies wanting to affiliate with us. But what it really tells you also is that there's a huge opportunity. And so if you look at the numbers in financial planning, they're slowly starting to budge on women. The percentage of women CFPs has been kind of stuck around 23% for close to 30 years, my entire career, which is very disappointing to me.
I know it's crazy. It's crazy that it hasn't changed much, right? Unbelievable.
It's a little disappointing. It is, but I see lots of good things happening. And if you look at the statistics, which were all published on the CFP website, you can see that the numbers of people of color, of different ethnic groups, those are actually starting to tick up. So even though they're still single digits, they're definitely making progress. And I see CFP board also doing some really promising things in trying to get more people to be able to pass the exam, to prepare properly, and then pass. So I think the big takeaway is there's room for everybody. We as a profession need everybody, but it's also everyone's job in the profession to get that word out that, hey, you like PR, you like marketing. Oh, you want to be behind the desk. You want to do more legal work. Oh, you like more accounting, or you want to crunch numbers and look at stocks. There's jobs in all of those areas in our wonderful profession. And that is not typically widely known.
Yeah, so such great points. And interestingly, I work with Hannah Moore, who has the externship program. I know you know her well, and she was on the podcast last year, and she was seeing the same thing. The number of students and career changers that go through her 8-week training program, the number that identify as Black or African American, that identify as Latinx or Hispanic and Asian, is significantly higher than the numbers that are currently in the industry. So, and for women, while you were saying it's like around that 23% number from the CF that according to the CFP board, she's getting about 45% of the individuals that participate in her program are women. So we're definitely seeing a snapshot and things tick up. And I know you're seeing the same thing at Diversitas, which is great. So what advice do you have for an RIA or a firm that is looking to recruit financial advisors or analysts or someone to their organization in a variety of roles, as you mentioned? What advice do you have for them in actually attracting them to their firms?
So I usually tell people, take out a map and look at what colleges and universities are, like maybe draw a circle around your office, maybe 100 miles or even 50 miles, and make sure you know all the schools that are around you. And then almost all of these schools have many, many opportunities to get involved. So for example, they have advisory boards. So the business school typically might have an advisory board for the finance department or the marketing department, accounting, et cetera. And these advisory boards get you on campus. You get to know the professors, and sometimes you get to know the students. All these schools have career fairs. They're always looking for firms because obviously they want to place their students in jobs. So, have a booth at a career fair. It's usually very, very inexpensive. Get to know some of these professors. You'd be amazed. They're looking for speakers in our business to come and talk to the students about, what it's like. I remember I've talked to marketing students, I've talked to accounting students, I've talked to all sorts of students about financial plan, trying to convert them over to our field. We get a lot of engineers actually who say engineering wasn't so fun. I'm going to be a financial planner. That's a true thing. A lot of people do convert. But get those relationships going. There's also summer internships. There's an app called Handshake, which is where most college jobs are posted, and you can post internship opportunities on Handshake. And but I think there's nothing like getting the relationship with the actual college or university. And I've been at a point where I actually get phone calls from professors saying, "Hey, do you need somebody? Because I've got this great person right now who's really promising, who is going to be a superstar." A couple other things you can do. I mentioned internships. I always did internships all year round. So some firms just think of them as a summer thing. But to me, I mean, I know a lot of these students need a job year round. So I would let them work 10 to 20 hours during the year, maybe full time in the summer. And I would typically look for sophomores or maybe early juniors because I wanted to have them in my office for about 2 years. And that way I really know, is this somebody I want to hire? What do they really like? And it's really a deep dive because if it's just for the summer, they've just learned your software. They've just learned how to answer the phone, and then it's time to go back to school. Why would you want to waste all that or give it to the next firm? Keep them with you. Finally, scholarships are a huge way to get directly to young talent, but also to get noticed at that university. And you'd really be amazed. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I don't have the money for a scholarship." Sometimes even a $5,000 scholarship is a meaningful scholarship at a lot of schools, and you will get recognition and you will get entree to these students. So there's just lots of things, but I would just encourage you to have a plan around it. So you're doing this on an ongoing basis versus just like, oh, 1 year we did this. Oh, 1 year we did that. Well, that's tactics. That's not having a strategy. You've got to put together an actual business plan for this.
I think you gave so many great practical things that advisors and firm owners can think about. That's not huge, heavy lifts. All of those things are doable. You know what I mean? And I love the thought of don't just look at it as like your regular internship program from this date to this date, which I think a lot of large firms do. So there's like an advantage if you are a smaller firm to being a little bit more flexible into what you can do and what you can offer. And again, like selfishly, you get somebody in there, they get to know your culture, your technology, they become friends with people in your office, and it makes it much easier to hire them full-time when they're ready to graduate. So those are really, really great bits of advice. Shifting gears for a minute, I love that you are affectionately known as the growth czar because of your ability to grow every business that you touch. And advisors and firms are always looking at exploring new ways to really grow their business. So what are a few key strategies that have really worked both in increasing business with current clients and then also attracting and converting prospects to clients? What have you seen work in your experience?
So even in this age of technology, again, there's nothing like the personal touch. And people more than ever are looking to be seen, recognized as individuals, and really be connected with. So I get back to it's almost like your personal development of an advisor or of an advisory team. What are you known for? What are you known for in the community? I used to publish an annual report for my business on not-for-profit events, things that we gave back to during the year. And I found that the clients loved that. Like we publish other information too, like, oh, this person got their CFP and this is our demographic of clients and this is how, where we are right now. But it always came back to the giving back. And so I think, you want to be authentic with this, of course, but I can't tell you the impact. One of the last things I did, we had a clothing drive for the career closet at a local university. So this particular university, which was Akron, has a lot of first generation students. They don't have money for a suit jacket or a nice interview dress or even shoes or whatnot. And so we thought, gosh, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people aren't going into the office anymore. Let's do a clothing drive. And we raised a record number of pieces of clothing, like 1,300 pieces of clothing from our clients, not just ourselves. And I mention it because it was authentic to us and our, long-standing tradition of developing young people, young talent. It engaged the clients. It gave them something to talk about, like, oh gosh, my financial advisor is doing this. Do you have anything in your closet to donate? I'm going to drop it off this afternoon. But it's things like that, and then we followed up with pictures from the event. And we had a couple pictures of, like, I remember one young man looking at himself in the mirror in a suit jacket. He probably never saw his father in a suit jacket. I still get a little choked up when I think about this photo. And those are the kinds of things that are authentic and that really can bond a client to you and your firm. So you got to figure out what is authentically you. And I think another thing to keep in mind too is that there's no small things. So when a client comes in your office, what is that experience like? Do you have dead plants? And we've had this happen where we looked at firms we were looking to buy and there's dead plants everywhere and we're like turning and running. Like, what else are you not feeding? You can't make this stuff up.
I'm looking
One of
around to
my
see if I've
favorite
got all
stories,
my plants seem to be thriving.
but it tells the client something about you. And if you don't have a green thumb, it's really okay, but then throw it out,
Yeah.
or get some of that funky bamboo that, it's hard to kill, whatever, the lucky plants. But a funny example that I always remember is I had a client years ago that picked up one of my mints. I had those starlight mints, the white mints with the little red in the corner that everybody
Oh,
has.
yeah. Yeah.
And she picked it up. And towards the end of the meeting, she said, "I don't think you know this, Carina, but my family was in the candy business and I hate these mints." And I said, "Ooh, how do you hate a piece of candy?" I love candy. "Why do you hate a mint?" And she said, "Do you know this is the cheapest candy in the world to manufacture? And we hate these mints." And she left, and I thought, do I want to be known for offering the world's cheapest candy to my clients? How embarrassing is that? The mints went in the garbage can, and some Swiss chocolate came out. But it may sound like a silly thing, but I can promise that clients notice the kind of pens you have in the office. They notice how you look. Like it doesn't mean that you have to be in formal business wear all the time, although I do trend more conservative in my attire when I'm, in business with, working with clients and handling millions of dollars. I don't want to look like what my mother used to call a schlumpadinka. I don't know what that even means, but a schlumpadinka sounds like a really bad thing. I want to look like I'm worth your millions of dollars. And so, teaching your staff that, and that, by the way, you can't do that virtually. You have to be doing that kind of teaching in person. What are you reading? What periodicals do you look at? What media are you consuming? And do you change it up? Are you interesting? Are you interesting? And do you ask questions? I mean, these are sort of like basic things that go back to the beginning of time, when the earth was cooling, when I started as a financial advisor. But quite honestly, these are still eternal. These are eternal things. And, I have people that I've worked with for 20 or 30 years that I'll probably be in touch with for the rest of my life. And it's because of, unique things, because of connecting, because of having authentic meaning. Everybody has this. They don't always know it, or they think they can't bring it to the office. But there's almost always a way to appropriately bring the things that are passionate to you. And clients are very attracted to that kind of authenticity.
I think that is a critical point. Be authentic, and that never underscore a personal touch and what that can do, especially when you think about, I don't know the percentage, but a large part of advisors' new business comes from referrals from current clients.
Yeah.
So like if you're putting that effort into getting to know your clients, into knowing what charities they support, right? I'll give a funny story. Most people that know me know that I'm obsessed with animals and especially cats. And my financial advisor gave me one of those, it's like one of those plaques, ask me about my cats. It's actually in the corner right over there. And I was like, that's so personal. That's so me. You know what I mean? It was funny, but it also reminded me that she was thinking about me. And just those little things, I think, are really, really important. And sometimes they don't get the credit that they deserve because everybody's like social media, digital marketing, and all these sophisticated ways to connect with your clients, content, marketing strategies. Of course, you need all of that, right? But when it comes down to it, that simple, know your client, get personal, do nice things for people, and be authentic. I think you can't underscore the importance of that more. So I love that you mentioned all of those things. And that's great to know about the mints. I'm not surprised. I'm not a fan of those either. So I have to come to your office because I do love Swiss chocolate. So, you mentioned earlier about your succession plan and creating a succession plan when you went to leave your former RIA. So what was the biggest surprise or bit of advice that you have that you think is important to share with others? I'm sure there's a ton of advisors out there that are thinking about their succession strategy. What can you share a little bit about your story?
So succession starts on day one, no matter how old you are. I mean, I have people that were interns with me that are now in their 40s, and I'm like, so what's your plan? What's your succession plan? So it starts on day one. So I was always transitioning. That was not, there was no surprise in that. But I think what I learned is, sometimes very exciting things come your way when you clear space for it. And it also leads to clarity on what is your real value and what are your real differentiators. And so I'm finding that these kind of messages are coming to me in direct and indirect ways. And I would say, Suzanne, stay tuned for more surprises from Carina Diamond.
Oh, I love that. A teaser. I think that's great. And yeah, I love just thinking about it from day one. Like no matter what, you're not always going to be in the role that you're in most of the time, right? So thinking about it from that standpoint, I think is really important. So I can't believe it, but we are at our last question of the podcast. We're at that time. And I always like to ask the same thing at the end, which is with the title and the theme of the podcast in mind, what is your last line? What key takeaway do you want to leave our audience with today?
For me, it gets back to maintaining and defining that beginner's mindset of infinite possibilities. And my very last line would be that it's never too early or too late for self-reinvention.
That should be a t-shirt. I agree. So I say it a lot when I'm speaking at events and on podcasts myself that, your definition of success changes depending upon where you are in your career journey. And so don't think that you're always just kind of meant to be one place or to do one thing. And I think that there's so many people that are testaments to that, and you are certainly one of them. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today and for sharing your insights on what firms need to be thinking about and implementing in order to be successful moving forward. So many great pieces of advice. I'm Suzanne Siracuse. Thanks for listening, and I hope this episode leaves you feeling even more excited to be focused on the future.